What up, gamers? I'm Jason.
I'm Julie.
And today on Dice & Dragons, we are going to be reviewing Avatar, The Last Airbender, Fire Nation Rising, published by the Op game. It is based on the cooperative game system, the Rising system, designed originally by Andrew Wolf, starting with Thanos Rising. And if I'm not mistaken, this version was designed by Pat Marino. Unfortunately, it's not included, the designer's name, on the box or in the rulebook, but he did comment on some Facebook pictures that I shared of us playing the game. So, Pat, thank you very much for letting us know that you're the one behind this, and we're very happy to give you credit. And Julie is now going to take it away and tell you a little bit more about the game itself.
So first, we'd like to thank the Op for sending us this review copy. We appreciate the support of the channel, and we'd like to remind our viewers that our opinion will remain our own. So this is a cooperative game for 1 to 5 players for ages 10 and above, and plays in about 60 minutes.
Now, what will you be doing in this game? Well, you're going to have a team. In this case, I'm playing as team leader Zuko. We have Avatar Aang, the Airbender. Now, one of the things I do want to mention about that, Aang's ability is fairly crucial to the end part of the game. So while you do have some different leaders, we were discussing it, and he's probably the one team member that you're always going to want to have. Also, his ability to have 4 of the elemental dice does come into play very early on in the game. Other than that, pick any of your favorite characters from the show and use them to your advantage. What you'll be doing is deploying your team using the team token to different regions. After you deploy your team, you'll be moving the Fire Lord, who will be attacking the different areas of the world. So potentially hitting your team, potentially not. You do have the balance and ruin track that progress towards the day of the Black Sun. So if the ruin track gets there first, things will end badly for the heroes. You may lose access to certain characters. Some of them have a black moon symbol on the card. They are all defeated, or if they come out of the deck, they are automatically defeated. In the case of the heroes getting there first, well, all of the villains with the black moon, the half moon, or day of the black sun symbol, looks like a moon, sorry, will be defeated, and it'll be to your advantage. Now, that's not necessarily going to cause you to lose the game or not, but just keep that in mind. You'll also be acquiring different Pie Show tokens as you damage villains and trying to build up your team in order to get more dice, because the more dice you roll, the more things you can accomplish. In order to defeat the villains, get to the final stage of the game where there'll be final battles. You must win the 3 final battles, and then you will save the world and have finally defeated Fire Lord Ozai and brought balance back to the realm. Did I miss anything at all, Julie?
I don't think so.
All right, on that note, we're now going to
grab our drink,
grab our best friend, take it to the table
one more time.
Now I'm going to take a look at the components and teach you some of the new elements in Avatar: The Last Airbender, Fire Nation Rising. Now there'll be a card popping up that will take you back to our review on how to play the Batman Who Laughs Rising, because that is the game that plays the most similar to this iteration of the Rising games. So here we have the rule book. The first page does something new by giving you just some of the key concepts so that you know what to expect in the game. You've got your list of components, and then the rules are very much laid out like they've been in other games, and you do get some clarifications just for the Day of the Black Sun, the Balance and Ruin track, which are the new elements for the game. Also, the new end game win conditions. And on the back, you do have a nice handy-dandy reference guide, as well as some probability tables and an explanation of the Pie Show tiles. So we talked about the Pie Show tiles. We'll take a look at them right now. So these are tokens that you will get for damaging enemy villains, or from other things, potentially some special abilities. So you can get stuff like reroll all assigned dice, some extra dice, and some symbols that can be spent on any player's turn to assist them with their goals. So that's one of the things I really like about that. You've got the 3 locations, the 3 sections of the board, and we've got in the center the big bad statue of Fire Lord Ozai. Now, Fire Lord Ozai will be moving not with dice, but with the Fire Nation deck, which has, as you can see, I'll tell you which direction to move him, if he stays pat and attacks, as well as how these cards affect the Ruin track, which we'll talk about in just a moment. I want to go through all of the components first. Here we've got the team markers. We've got Aang, Zuko, Katara, Sokka, and Toph. Here we have our teams. And you can see the starting dice pool of each team, which is very different, and they all have their own asymmetric abilities. So with regards to Aang, you've got an air die, a water die, an earth die, and a fire die. You may spend 1 air to follow the avatar and swap the position of any 2 character cards in locations, which is very good. You can even use it to swap villains, so keep that in mind. Team leader Zuko. So he gets 2 fire dice and 2 earth die. His ability is redirect lightning, so he can move damage from one villain to another. It can be very useful. Team leader Katara, 2 water die, 2 earth die. She's got healing waters, which is -1 damage from any hero. And then team leader Sokka, also 2 water die, 2 earth die with the master plan. Leave any one assigned but unused die on a hero or villain card for the next player's turn, which can be very, very useful. Lastly, we've got Toph, who has only earth dice, and her ability is to flip 2 Pai Sho tokens face up in the supply and choose to gain one of them. But your limitation is you only start with 1 color die, so you're going to need to add some variety as quickly as possible. So as you can see, we have the dice, earth, water, fire, and air. Now the little less air dice. You can see on the fire die here that there's a 2. So each die of their respective colors, and I'll go with the yellow die, does have the possibility to get a double value in that color. So we're not going to look at all the different faces, but you can see them there, like water, fire, earth, double earth. So you get a very good idea as to what you'll be getting. Now, we have our deck of cards here. We're going to start with the villains. There are 13 villains in the game, and you will be getting rid of 3 of them during setup. You can play with all of them if you'd like. They've got a different back. They've got this dark fire background to signify that they're the ones you'll be fighting. Other than that, you've got different benders and characters from all across the series Avatar, and they each represent the different tribes: water tribe, earth tribe, air, and you even have some good fire benders as well, which is very cool. So I really like the stills. Actually works very well. I think they made some good choices, and it doesn't look out of place. And then of course you've got the team leader cards, which are a little more powerful. They'll get extra dice based on who are adjacent to them, and they are very cool. They also have the values as how they acquire them, and the team leaders have those as well, because you may acquire those characters if they do not happen to be your team leader. Now, I haven't talked about the final battles yet, nor have we talked about the balance and ruin tracks, which we're going to get to right now. We'll take a look at how that affects the characters and villains as well. So you do have different difficulties, and for variety, they are double-sided. So we've got easy, normal, and hard. What you need to do as players is race up the balance track by being able to pay the amount, and only 1 time during your turn, of the value above it. And your goal is to get to the top at the same term as the ruin track or before it. If that is the case, then all enemies with the Day of the Black Sun symbol on them will be discarded when they come into play. So it'll make things easier for you. Now, if the ruin track beats you there, then all heroes with the Day of the Black Sun symbol will be discarded, and that includes those that are in play or when they come into play. And they will count against the total amount of heroes that have been defeated, and you can only have a maximum of 10 heroes defeated. Now, once the Day of the Black Sun has been triggered, there are 3 final battles that are placed on the board, and you may only attempt the final battles when these areas are without any villains in them. So all villains need to be defeated, or you need to use abilities like Avatar Aang's to swap the villains into a location. Now, you need to successfully complete the requirements twice on each of these battles. Afterwards, you'll gain the reward for completing the battle, and if you can complete all 3 before 10 heroes have been placed into the discard pile, you will then win the game. So there you have it. These are the components. Get a nice look at them. And we've talked about what's new with the game, so keep it right here, as Julie and I will be coming back at you with our review. So Julie, what did you think of Fire Nation Rising? This is the, 4th, 5th game that we've played in the series from the op?
Yeah, I think we've played them all, haven't we?
Everything except for the SpongeBob SquarePants game.
Yeah, that one I'll take a pass on. Now that you've said that, the song is stuck in my head. That's great. We haven't played a Rising game in a while. But
been about a year. The last one we played was the Batman Who Laughs Rising.
Yeah, one of my favorites is still the Harry Potter Death Eaters Rising. That one is still one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite IPs, so I really enjoy it. So to come back to this one, again, surprise, surprise. I can't say I have no idea about the IP. I think Jason put 1 or 2 episodes on for me to try to watch.
Well, not to get you really into it, but just something that would be good to watch with a little guy. It is very family friendly. He's definitely a little young for it, but I wanted to get her opinion to see if it's something that we could show him in the near future.
So that being said, this is a Rising game, so it is very similar. You're still rolling dice and you're still assigning damage.
Sending your team to different locations.
But there's a couple of new things which make it a little bit different. I mean, I'm sure Jason will talk about it a little bit more. He likes to go into the details. Actually, why don't you do that now?
So when you're looking at how this game has changed, and the real new thing for this game specifically is the adjacent hero mechanic. So all the leaders will get an extra die if they're adjacent to different types of heroes. So it will affect who you're trying to acquire in order to build the most effective version of your team. It does take the mechanic from the Batman Who Laughs Rising, which is that progression mechanic, which is represented by the balance and ruin track. Something that I really like, because you see that 60 minutes plus on the game. That progression track is going to keep it closer to that 60-minute mark. Something that we found that we were easily going over with Thanos Rising and even Death Eaters Rising. So that's one of the things that I like. Other than that, you're really doing the same stuff. Instead of facing off against the Fire Lord Ozai, there are 3 final battles that you have to complete. And to do that, there must be no enemies in a location. So for example, if this was the last battle, we've got Azula here. Once she's there, you cannot complete the battle. And you have to defeat those 3 battles in order to win the game. You also have the Day of the Black Sun, which is an event that makes the Firebenders more powerful. So that is represented by the balance and ruin track. If you're able to get the balance track to the top before the ruin track, it will end more in your favor than if it ends in the favor of the villains. Now, even if it goes in favor of the villains, it's not the biggest negative. It's just going to make the game more challenging, and we successfully won the game despite that happening.
Yeah, but even though that was an interesting progression track, it made it a little bit more complicated for me, because in a couple of the games, the dice just weren't going my way, and
at least at the start.
I just couldn't get that. I really needed a certain type. I needed to get something that made sense, and it wasn't working for me. So that that's part of this game. It is fairly dependent on what you're rolling from a dice perspective. So it has a little bit of a. Well, I was going to say aléatoire. My French is coming out. But basically, the dice do determine. If they're not rolling in your favor, it can be a long game.
Yes, it can definitely be a long game, which happened to you at the start of our last game. But you picked it up and came out with a strong victory. So other than that, this is very much like the other Rising games. One of the reasons that I really like this is the IP. I think the Batman Who Laughs Rising, out of all the games until this one, was the best design of the game, something that Julie actually agreed with me with, mainly because of that progression track, keeping the game to a more reasonable playtime. So having that element in this more family-friendly IP is something that I do really appreciate. That being said, the gameplay is very much identical to the other games, especially at the core of it. There are a few new things, such as some of the abilities, but a lot of them are inspired by abilities that were in previous iterations of the game. So if you aren't a big fan of the game, and the game series type, the mechanics, you don't necessarily need this one, but if you're a fan of Avatar and you like the Rising games, this is going to be a solid pickup, because it takes the best of the games, iterates on it just a little bit more, and puts it in a packaging that is a little bit more accessible. Also, I think we want to say the component quality has definitely gone up. The cards are thicker. Like, the dice look absolutely fantastic. And if you skipped over the components, you can go back and take a look at them. So just for that alone, I want to give a big thumbs up. The cardboard is a lot thicker. I was very surprised when I was punching the game. I was like, wow, I don't know if I need to sleeve this one. Now, if we played the little guy, probably will. But it's nice to have some higher quality components coming out of the op for this game. So anything that you want to add, Julie?
No, I don't think so. I mean, like I said, it is very similar to the other games.
Yeah, and if you didn't notice when it popped up, I mentioned it earlier when we were doing the intro, that it'd be popping up at the start. Or actually, we'll have it pop up definitely again. You can go back and see our other reviews of the Rising games if you're looking for some more information as to what we think of the system in general. So on that note, Julie, what did you score for Fire Nation Rising?
I'm going to give it a 7.5.
I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to give this a 7.5. I was getting close to giving it an 8, but I don't think there's enough differences from the other games to really push it up to the 8 mark. That being said, I do think this is probably overall the best iteration of the game that is on the market. And if I have to tell someone to get only one of the Rising games, this is the one I'm going to be recommending. Or it'll be the Batman Who Laughs Rising if they're more of like, for an older gaming group. And on that note, we're now going to
remind you to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell to be notified when we have some new content for you.
And take a look down below in the video description. You'll find links to all our social media feeds, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, if you'd like to see some pictures of Julie and I playing Fire Nation Rising or any of the other games in the Rising series. There are plenty on those feeds. Also down there's a link to multizone.ca, a great Canadian game store. So we're looking to pick up any games from the Fire Nation Rising, Thanos Rising, I was going to say Darkseid, but you can only get that one through Amazon. Batman Who Laughs Rising, make sure you check them out. Click the link, you'll get 10% off your next purchase, and it's a great way to support the channel, as a portion of that purchase will be returned to us. And then popping up in front of us are going to be links to some of our previously released videos. In front of me will be our most recent release. In front of Joe is going to take you back to the full playlist on all the different Rising games, so you can check out our thoughts on all of them, or just the ones that interest you. And on that note, we're now going to
grab our drink,
grab our best friend,
and we're going to
keep playing games.
There you go. Keep playing games.